Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So for today's video, I'm going to announce my giveaway winners. That'll be at the end. I'm going to also be working on a little tutorial slash basically some tips, I guess, for getting better at drawing the human head. I did do a video on this a while back, but I actually think there's a lot I didn't touch on, so I want to redo it, do kind of like an updated version, I suppose. So yeah, I had this little skull that I'm using for reference for my skull drawing, and I just got it from my local art store. I got it from Opus. I'm using the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencil, and I'm also using the Pentel Orange mechanical pencil in 0.2. The eraser that I'm using is the Triangle Deleter eraser. I think the most important thing when learning to draw a head is understanding what's underneath. So right now I'm just drawing my skull here, and I actually should be drawing more skulls, to be honest, because I feel like it would help me a lot with creating faces, but I actually skipped this step, but I feel like it is very important. So basically, I created a cube to kind of mimic the angle that the skull is, because I do have issues with perspective a lot of the time, so I'm trying to learn how to look at something and see these invisible cubes. So I tried to place an invisible cube around the skull that I was looking at, and it took a few tries, but I eventually got it to kind of line up to how I think the cube would be. And if you look at perspective guides, you'll see a lot of these cubes being used with perspective lines, and it seems like they do help a lot, so I definitely suggest using them if you're wanting to use perspective and when you're practicing drawing heads as well, like if you're doing studies. I had a lot of issues with the chin on this guy for some reason. I think it's because I'm so used to drawing like small pointy chins because I draw a lot of women, so I had to like go over and keep like widening the chin. I find that doing sketches in just black and white is really handy, or just doing any form of like studies in black and white is really, really good. I feel like you shouldn't dive into colors until you feel like you 100% are good at drawing something. I find that it helps a lot to just really work on nailing down the shadows and everything, as opposed to just jumping into the next thing and trying to create a masterpiece. So yeah, if you want to get better at drawing skulls, I suggest fill a page with skulls. Just draw a whole bunch of them and keep doing it. Like, if you're not confident with the first page, just keep drawing more. And use references, like look for photos. Draw in grayscale, and look up the face anatomy, like the muscles underneath as well, like not under the skull obviously, but the muscles on top of the skull and under the skin. I feel like that helps a lot to kind of understand where things are placed. A lot of people, myself included, will just start drawing without knowing what's underneath. Like, I started just getting right into anime and copying that instead of actually building up the proper building blocks. So I think that if you are learning, this is a good way of going about it. I definitely think I could have grown a lot faster if I had learned this way first. So here I'm trying to see the face in shapes as opposed to what I think a face looks like. So I'm breaking down the nose as more of a triangle shape, the mouth is more of a shape, and I had the eyes in there as just circles, and then I built the lids on top of it. So this is a lot of the times how I will actually start out a face. It always changes depending on the person and everything. This one I'm doing from my head, so it's not as good as it could be because I'm not using reference, but I've practiced heads for so long that I feel like I can draw one from my memory, and it turns out somewhat okay. Mind you, a lot of the times it does turn out more cartoony. but I think that's just because that's sort of what my mind wants to lean towards when I'm working on things from my head. Yeah, I just sketched this guy in, like, while keeping in mind sort of the shadows, like the little circle with the arrow there is the direction that the light is coming from. And I feel like if you're gonna practice drawing a lot of these skulls and faces, you should definitely try practicing shadows. Like, try and actually make it as realistic as possible. Obviously not like this guy. This guy's a little bit cartoony and illustrative, but try to make it look very realistic. If you start with realism and then go to a more illustrative style or abstract style that you want to create, I feel like you can't really go wrong because you have the building blocks to work from. This guy actually ended up looking kind of like my uncle. So yeah, his face is a little bit wonky, mainly because I drew him at a really weird angle. I'm sitting kind of far back. Normally I'd avoid it. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you guys how I draw from my head, how it looks like when I draw from my head without using a reference, and sort of where I place the shadows and everything, and how I know where to place the shadows just from using references and learning. This is something that experience will kind of get you. If you practice every day, it's almost impossible to not be able to do things like this. But if you're always using a reference instead of going from your head or from someone else's artwork that you follow, then you can't really mess up because you're getting the raw form, and then that way you can kind of alter it to how you see fit later. Here's some drawings that I actually used a reference for, and I feel like they turned out quite a bit better. Mind you, they don't have a lot of like shadows or shading on them, but that wasn't really what I was going for. So if you're going to start learning how to draw a head, I suggest trying to learn to draw different angles. I've seen a lot of artists that will draw just the front view of the head, and you want to know how to draw all different angles, and you also want to know how to draw where the shadow is coming from at different angles as well. So you want to do different studies of different angles of the head, different directions that the light's coming from. So characters looking up, down, sideways, 3/4. Right now I'm working on the 3/4 one, and that's a very, very common side. I think I do 3/4 a lot. But yeah, I definitely suggest trying to mix it up and experiment as much as possible. Make sure that you really understand every different angle and how everything looks at different angles. Eyebrows, for example, I used to try and do a full eyebrow when I draw a character from the side, but that's not how it works. It's usually more small when you're looking at someone from the side. Try to make sure you're just constantly drawing heads. If you want to get better at drawing something, it's really simple. You just have to draw it a lot, and you have to use a lot of references and break things down into shapes. So right now I'm breaking the nose down into a simple shape. So the most simplest shape is on the left there, and I'm just working on how I would see the shading. And then the right hand side is a more complicated shape, and then from there, once you understand that this is kind of how a nose looks like, it's much easier to recreate it. And obviously not all noses are going to be like this one. Like my nose, for example, is more square and wide. So different noses will look different, but if you understand how the shadows work, and if you look at it in a divided sense, and if you look at it in a shape, then it's much easier to learn. So yeah, I did like a tilted upwards nose, and it works for lips too. If you think about lips as a shape, it makes it much easier for you to use a shadow. And also, when you're drawing a face, a really good tip to keep in mind is that the eyelashes, the very corners of the mouth, and the nostrils are going to be the darkest part of the face. I did that one really, really quickly and really crooked. The eyes are wonky, but forgive me, I was trying to do it fast for you guys. So always keep that in mind. If you're going to have black in your drawings, that is where it should be used. And also the pupils, obviously. Another way that I like drawing lips, actually, is I like just shadowing the top lip. Like, I like shading in just the top, if you're doing really quick sketches, and then just adding a shadow underneath the bottom lip, instead of coloring in the bottom lip. I feel like it just adds more of a realness to it, but that's just something that I like doing. You guys don't have to do this. So now I'm just trying to apply some different things that I've learned. Once you get to a much more proficient level, you can start doing different angles and expressions with characters. So yeah, you can have somebody like have their head tilted, looking upwards, you know, giving like a smug look. You can start to do whatever you want, but it definitely suggests that you start with learning the basic building blocks by just learning the different angles of the face, learn how to draw separate facial features, so do some studies of different noses and different lips, different eyes, and I feel like that will really help you kind of get an understanding on how to draw the full head. And then once you're done learning the head, then you can move on to the next thing. Like if you want to learn hands, it's the same thing. You just draw a bunch of hands every day and you'll slowly get better. Now I'm just drawing the eye here, and this is just really, really simple eye, but you'll know that, you know, when you're drawing eyelids, they go over top of the eye. So a lot of times I'll just do a circle for the eye, and then I'll just kind of cover it in these like blankets, which will be like the eyelids. And so if you're drawing them from the side, then if you look at an eyeball from the side, you'll see that the lids stick out more than the eye. You want to think about things like this, and these are things that you'll get if you use reference, whereas if you don't use reference and you're just looking at cartoons or anime, then you'll miss this kind of stuff, which is really good to know. If you're drawing different races, you're gonna have different kind of shapes of eyes, noses, lips. So for this eye in particular, I'm drawing an Asian eye, so there's a lid that kind of goes over top of the tear duct a bit more, and sometimes they don't have the crease as well, so it's definitely good to practice drawing different races, and this way you can get to know more about the body and how it can like, how different pieces of skin can like fold over, or, you know, different features. Another thing is a lot of the time Asians will have very like straight brows, and that's something that, you know, you might not know if you're just thinking from your head, whereas if you used reference and you practiced it, then you can know these things. I definitely suggest using a lot of references. Make sure that you just stick with it, try to draw every day, and you will slowly learn how to draw a head, and it'll just stick with you like muscle memory. Even if you think you're already really good at drawing a head, it's still a good practice to keep drawing and keep using references. So here I'm just kind of demonstrating a really crappy drawing of the shape of an eyeball. So an eyeball isn't completely circular. This is like a very exaggerated drawing of one, because our iris and pupil is on the one side of our eye. It actually sticks out more, and your eye kind of like stretches to fit the lens. That kind of helps determine the shape of your character's eye. It'll actually change how the lid lies over top of the eyeball. So now I have a little challenge for you guys. You can use the hashtag #1monthmug on social media if you'd like me to see, or if you'd like to see anyone else's practices. You definitely don't have to share any of your studies if you're just learning and you don't want to share. Don't feel pressured to ever share your work. If you want to get better, feel free to use this list of things that you can do throughout the month. For week 1, I have for you to draw 5 skulls a day of various angles, and you can study muscles on day 7. You can also do close-ups of different parts of the skull and try different like shadows and shading of the skull. And if you want to, you can just do more days that are just muscles as opposed to just the skull. And then week 2, I have draw a different facial feature every day, and then do that 5 times a day. So yeah, that could be you know, draw a nose 5 times a day. And then week 3, I have day 1, draw 5 frontal faces, so that's a front facing head. And then day 2, draw 5 side faces, and then on day 3, draw 3/4 angle faces. And then repeat. And then on day 7, basically just work on the angle that you feel like you're the weakest at. And on week 4, draw 5 unique angles a day. So basically just make sure you're drawing 5 faces a day, have them looking all different directions, Make sure you're working with different shadows, and I feel like you'll definitely feel like you have improved a little bit at the end of the month. And if you don't feel like you've improved, then you should definitely keep doing it, because some of us are just slower learners. I'm definitely a slower learner with some things. So don't feel bad about being a little bit slower with learning. There's nothing wrong with it. We all learn at different rates, and there's nothing bad that can be said about somebody who wants to try and do their best to learn something. So yeah, that's there if you guys want to use it. You don't have to, but I feel like this is the best way you could possibly learn how to draw a face. Use photo references, look on Pinterest, look on Google. Make sure you use credits if you use other people's photos and you post them on your social media. Also, if you want to, you can try drawing people, like if you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, mom, dad, have them sit for you and you could try drawing them if you're feeling confident enough. That's there for you guys if you want to try it. So now let's talk about the giveaway. There was so many people who entered, and I'm so grateful for all of you, and I wish I could give all of you presents and just like hug you guys, and I can't wait till I can do conventions so I can see you guys. I feel like that'll be great. But I'm going to post the 2 winners. Janelle and Laura were the winners. I will be emailing you guys very soon, maybe tomorrow or the day after. But thank you guys so much for applying, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next one next week and enjoy this video of my cat. Thanks guys, bye!